BTS News Today. That night, Seoul was wrapped in a bone-chilling cold. Beneath the city lights that twinkled like man-made stars, BTS's Jimin walked briskly through the corridors of Incheon Airport, bundled in a thick jacket and a black cap that concealed almost his entire face. There was no official announcement from HYB, no public schedule known to fans, and even the staff who usually accompanied him were nowhere to be seen. That silence itself was an alarm to those who were perceptive. Something was happening, something he did not want to share with the world. At least, not yet. That Jimin's departure that night was so quiet. Only a handful of passengers happened to recognize him at the immigration gate, and even they paused for a few seconds before daring to lift their phones. But Jimin didn't look back. His gaze was fixed straight ahead, his steps purposeful, as if every second he had was precious. In his hand, he carried a small bag that seemed heavy, not because of its contents, but because of the story behind it. That a few hours later, the plane carrying him took off, cutting through the night sky toward a destination even his fans could not guess. The only clue was the flight manifest, showing an airport code somewhere in Europe. As soon as the news spread across army forums, theories began to swirl. Some said he was taking personal time to rest, others suspected he was preparing a secret project. But no one truly knew that this journey was not simply for leisure or work, but a search. The next morning, in an old city with cobblestone streets and classical buildings that had stood for hundreds of years, a man in a black jacket walked along a narrow sidewalk. His breath puffed into the crisp autumn air, his eyes scanning every detail around him. A small cafe at the street corner, a flower shop just opening, and the sound of church bells ringing in the distance. It was Jimin, and he was in Amsterdam. For most people, Amsterdam might be just a famous tourist destination. But for Jimin, this city held a far deeper meaning. Years ago, he had spent a few days here with someone very dear to him, someone who had given him strength during his darkest times, yet someone he could now only meet in memory. This mysterious journey was, in truth, a trip to close a circle left open, to touch again a fragment of the past he had left behind. He stayed at a small hotel by the canal, far from the bustling city center. Each morning, he walked alone across narrow bridges spanning the water, watching the sunlight reflect on the canal's surface, sometimes stopping at a wooden bench to stare into the distance. There was a longing he could not put into words, but it was visible in the way he stayed silent. A silence not empty, but filled with conversations in his heart. One afternoon, Jimin stepped into an old music shop. The air was thick with the scent of aged wood and dust, and rows of vinyl records lined the shelves. His hand brushed against one record and slid it out. The cover depicted a sunset sky, the exact same album once given to him by that person. His mind immediately drifted back to when he was still a trainee, full of fear and doubt. That album, and the person who gave it to him, had been one of the reasons he kept going. The shop owner, an elderly man with a kind face, watched Jimin with quiet curiosity. "You like this music?" he asked in slow, careful English. Jimin gave a small smile and answered softly, "Yes, it reminds me of someone." The man simply nodded, as if understanding that not all memories need explaining. Jimin bought the record without bargaining, carrying it outside and holding it close to his chest. He walked back toward the canal, stopped on a bridge, and gazed at the gently rippling water. There, he whispered something in Korean, words carried away by the cold wind in every direction, like an invisible letter sent to someone far away. Jimin spent his days in Amsterdam simply, writing in a small notebook, taking pictures with a film camera, and visiting places he had once gone to before. But there was one night that changed everything. That night, light rain fell, dampening the cobblestone streets. Jimin wore a long coat, walking toward a small cafe lit only by candlelight on its tables. In the corner of that cafe sat an empty chair, the one they had once shared. He sat there, ordered chamomile tea, and stared at the empty seat across from him. His tears fell without warning. There were no cameras, no cheering fans, no background music, only the sound of rain tapping against the window. In that moment, Jimin felt his entire journey had not been in vain. He had come not to forget, but to accept. The memory was no longer a burden, but a part of him that made him stronger. A few days later, Jimin returned to Schiphol Airport with lighter steps. In his hand, he still carried the same small bag, but this time it held something new. A vinyl record from the old music shop, photographs he had taken himself, and long notes about this trip. As the plane took off, he looked out the window, watching the city lights of Amsterdam grow smaller and disappear. In his heart, he knew he had closed an old chapter in his life and was ready to open a new one. When he arrived back in Seoul, fans immediately flooded social media with photos and videos of his return. No one knew for sure what he had done in Amsterdam, but everyone agreed that his face looked different, calmer, warmer, like someone who had found a part of himself that had once been lost. And perhaps that was why this mysterious journey felt so moving, even if not everyone knew the details.